Everyone, Francis Walsh here again with thedigitalmerchant.com, and today we're going to be looking at the best US-based accounts payable solutions. So I suppose accounts payable really is one of those functions that when you start a business, it's not exactly what you had in mind when you started the business. It's not something that you necessarily wanted to spend a lot of time on, but it does take up a lot of time, and particularly if you don't have the right tech in place to help you do it. So if you're doing a lot of this manually, and if your business is kind of at the point where it's scaling to where you'd like to not have to do so much of it manually, the good news is that there are a lot of platforms out there that will help you take the pain out of it. So I've looked at four of the leading ones in this video. There are a couple of differences between them in terms of budget, in terms of scope, in terms of add-ons, and all that kind of thing. So it's really going to depend, I suppose, on the volume of your accounts payable transactions, on your budget, and on kind of what other bells and whistles you might need. So let's get into it. So the first option that we're looking at here is Melio. Now, Melio is a platform I'm a really big fan of, and I've recommended it on this channel before. I just think it really offers a lot for businesses of all sizes, and going right down to the solopreneur and kind of small startup level, it's still really accessible even if you're at that level. It's got a really kind of a sensible pricing structure, I think. So it starts off with a free tier that's actually useful. If you're a one-man band, if it's just you in your business, then I think the free tier could actually be enough for you indefinitely. You might not have to upgrade to a paid tier. If you do, though, there are plenty of options. There are, it's as affordable as you want it to be, and it still goes right up to the enterprise level, with custom pricing at that point. If you do need to negotiate, expanded capacity or whatever else. But so yeah, even though it works kind of with a lot of small businesses, as you can see here, it does also have, quite a lot of respectable names on its client list. And it's got really good integrations with the existing, kind of bill pay infrastructure that exists in business. So it's not going to cause you any problems there. And one feature that I find is just really, really useful, is the fact that you can use Melio to pay by credit card, even if your vendors don't take credit card as their payment method. So, say even if they accept checks as their payment method and they won't accept anything else, you can make your payment by card, and then Melio will issue a check on your behalf for a small fee. So that obviously is really, really handy, particularly when you come into contact with vendors that only have slightly awkward, payment infrastructure in place. That's a really handy tool to have in your arsenal. So yeah, overall, I think Melio does a really great job of marketing to smaller businesses. Still, it will also scale with your business, and it has a lot of useful features as well. It does lack, I suppose, some of the more advanced automations that you'll find with, heavier platforms. But I mean, really, unless you need these specific automations, I don't think that's too big of a deal. So it is a kind of about assessing your own need. But I think for a general purpose accounts payable platform, I think you could do a lot worse than Melio. So the next platform we're looking at here is Bill.com. Now, Bill.com is probably a platform you'll be familiar with if you've spent any amount of time kind of, I suppose, running a business and dealing with vendors, because it is a really established name in this space. And it does have a lot of clients, and it does have a kind of a long track record in the space, and not without good reason. It's a solid platform, and it does offer a lot. But I do think, particularly for businesses at the smaller end of the scale, I just think there are better options out there. Firstly, I don't really think it represents value for money if you're at the smaller end of the scale in terms of business. Um, um, and also, I think it really depends on what you need too, because I think Bill's biggest selling point is its automation. Like, it has really useful automations, and if you're at a certain scale or if you have a certain type of workflow, these can come in really handy. But essentially, if you don't need them, you're going to be paying for things that you don't need. There are also quite a few reports of glitches with Bill. I've come across this quite a bit on Reddit and other review platforms. And look, with something that's as automation heavy as Bill, I mean, if you come to rely on these automations and then they start glitching on you, it can cause a lot of disruption. So it's just something to be aware of. Um, I suppose really the big other selling point of Bill then would be its approval controls. So if you have multi-level approval in your organization, and you need sign off for expenses from like multiple parties, Bill does a really good job of that. So I think if that's kind of your main use case, then I would look at Bill. Other than that, though, I just think you'll find better value for your money elsewhere. So the next platform we're looking at here is Tipalti. Now, Tipalti is kind of the specialist option on this list. It's really built for companies that do business globally and that have, APs going out to in different currencies and to a lot of different countries. Tipalti does a really good job of simplifying currency exchange, and it also does a really good job of automating tax compliance requirements across borders. Now, obviously, if you've spent any amount of time doing tax compliance, even in one country, it can be quite a headache. If you have to do it in several, it becomes, a huge drain on your time and your resources. So having a platform that can help you with this obviously is really beneficial, and Tipalti does shine here. It makes all this process much easier, and it takes a lot of the pain and the stress and the time out of it. And so from that point of view, if your workflow does look like that, and if you're working in a lot of currencies and you're sending payments to a lot of different countries, I really would recommend Tipalti. I think it's very good for that. Um, the other kind of use case in which it shines is just like really high bulk AP processing. Like if you're doing thousands of payments a month, it does have the kind of the back end to support that, and it just makes it easy, and it will essentially make your life a lot more straightforward in that respect. Now, of course, all of this doesn't really come cheap. You're going to be starting at a monthly payment of $99 per user per month for Tipalti. So, if you don't require these features, then there's probably no point paying that much for them. You can get much better, you can get much lower prices elsewhere. So, obviously, as a business, the last thing you want to be doing is incurring costs unnecessarily. So, yeah, if you need Tipalti, then I think there's probably no better alternative for the use cases it serves. If you don't need Tipalti, you just should look elsewhere. So the last platform I'm going to look at today is Stampli. Now, Stampli have done a really good job in an area that a lot of software platforms don't do a good job in, and that's their interface, their UI. They've done a really, really good job of making it accessible, making it, user friendly. Even if you don't have a person that's, good with tech, or like, a finance professional on your team, you'll still be able to use it and get the value out of it. And that's a really, really big selling point. The other thing that Stampy has done really well, and this has obviously also come into the fore big time in the last couple of years, its AI system is just really, really useful. So it's called Billy the Bot, and essentially it functions as an AI chatbot, as you would imagine an AI chatbot would. But like a lot of these chatbots don't actually really work as they're supposed to, and they're just not an effective substitute for, we'll say, a human agent. Billy the bot really does do a good job of kind of problem solving and of helping you get set up with the platform, and it just contributes to this overall kind of platform experience that's really positive and really easy to get used to and get set up with. So I suppose it's been all positive so far, but so the real issue with Stamply, and it is, a major issue, is its pricing. Its pricing is just completely inconsistent with the market. I think it's not really offering enough to justify the prices it's charging. As you can see here on the pricing page, it doesn't have publicly listed tiers like Melio does or like Bill does. It's done on the basis of custom pricing, so it's not you can't see what you're going to end up spending on it from here, but it is more expensive than its competitors, and it's not something like Tipalti where it's kind of justifiable on the basis of serving a specific use case with a lot of heavy usage. It's kind of selling completely on the basis of its UI, and while its UI is really good, it's not really enough to justify the money you're going to spend on it. So for that reason, I couldn't really recommend Stanley, unfortunately, even though it is a lovely platform. So in summary, I think Melio is the recommendation I would make in terms of an accounts payable solution for most businesses, particularly at the smaller end of the scale. I just think it's really accessible in terms of price. It's user friendly. It's got some great features, and unless you really need a high end accounts payable service with a lot of automations to it, I think Melio is going to be more than enough. So yeah, that's kind of all for me on this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.